Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, we love having you back. Today's topic is going to be regarding your spiritual sense of self. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Jacob Cooper. I'm the author of The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder and Life After Breath, both profound books surrounding my near-death experience. And this NDE sponsored a sense of awareness that really was not congruent with the outer world, in my development. And, there was a lot of cultural myths that I, recognized later in life that weren't reflective of the ultimate reality of my NDE. But today's topic really surrounds your spiritual self. And I think a lot of people, come to my channel, that started in other channels of higher awareness, higher consciousness, because maybe there's a part within their own religious belief system that isn't really sustaining joy, that's not giving them a sense of connectivity or purpose, or maybe there's like a part of them that felt isn't being nourished or isn't being heard. And really that part of you is that inner spiritual self, the inner part of you. In my workshops, I always say that there's an outer, awareness, there's an outer God, and there's also an inner God. There's an inner awareness to God. And, on this channel, we're really talking about, that sense of interconnection, how each person, near-death experiencer or whatever you have, has that ability to connect to that place within. And that's why more and more people are coming to these channels as they're listening to that deep inner voice within themselves that has always been there, that maybe has been bogged down by the outer world, or has been overtaken by the world, creating your sense of self or your mind instead of your soul in your mind, your inner awareness, creating your world. And today is really about connection to today's topic. Rather, is really connection to that inner part of you. That the real you, the you beyond the you, as I say it. In our world, from a very early age, we're almost kind of programmed to take a name, to take a culture, to take all these senses of self, and I call that, it's just all these things fit in this box. And there's different terminologies of it. Some will say that's the ego. That's that false sense of self that the world really contributes to or creates to. And so a lot of people will hold on to this box, and to me they have, in a way, like I would label it kind of like a spiritual just kind of decay, or they're just stagnant inside because they'll live their lives through this whole box of perception and reality, and they're not willing to expand this box. They're not willing to delve deeper into it, because religions, there's just a certain box that you have, and that's all that you're meant to follow. It doesn't tell you that you're there to add to it, or you're there to enhance it. You're just kind of the path is laid for you, and that's what it is. There's no really increasing that box, and that box was given to you or told to you by someone else or a group, or a pocket of belief, cultural consciousness and stuff like that, group consciousness. And so it's hard to grow that box, but spirituality seeks to think outside the box, no pun intended. It really continuously, each and every day, we're trying to expand that box. We're trying to grow that box of perception of the world around us and the world outside of us. And so each day is another opportunity to look at life in a different lens, to look at the nature of reality through a broadened lens. And so we're continuously, in that, observer mind. We're in, a lot of the beginner's mind, in a way, where we come to a place of not knowing, and we continue to explore and have deepened relationships with those things that we don't know. And in our world, today there's a lot of people who they'll see something that they don't know, and they'll come with judgment or trepidation, or just kind of push that away as that thing is weird, or that thing doesn't fit my box, so I will not, waste my time to understand it. But spirituality continuously, true spirituality continuously has this box of reality, and expands it. But I think a lot of people have difficulty expanding this box because they just have a set criteria of reality and who they are. I am this name, I am this gender, I am this culture, I'm all these things. I'm this job, I have this car, and that's who I am. So we get attached to all these, temporary senses of identity, that in reality are things that we experience, but they're not the full totality of who we are. For instance, when someone really identifies themselves with things or materials or titles, I say, well, what happens, when you leave that job, when that car breaks down, when that relationship, ends for whatever reason, who really are you? And I think that's why a lot of people have these, crises in lives, when they have a sense of loss of a thing that they kind of saw themselves as or were attached to, and formulated their sense of identity. And, I think what's important to bear in mind is we are spiritual beings having all of these experiences here in life, but we can't take, these material things or these titles, all these human constructs, are things that we abide by here, things that we, ascribe to here, but in our hearts of hearts, they're not real, they're not truly who we are. And so, so that separates our inner being versus what we have and what we're doing, and I think if we're able to do that, we're able to embrace who we are and generate the hope past, some of the turmoil may come in. Because, when you have this mindset, you recognize no matter what, I will always be myself. I will always be who I am. And so when there's a struggle that happens to you or conflict that you have, you could just say that I'm experiencing this. This is a moment in time, but I will continue past this. Whether, we go on in the spirit realm or in this life, we'll always have the ability to accept and love who we are, and that's important. And a lot of people, they, live their lives from the outside in, so no matter what happens to them, that's their inner sense of self-acceptance or inner sense of joy. And it's a very disempowered place to live in because we can't control outer circumstances. We can only control the degree of space that we have with how we relate to those outer experiences. And so, having a near-death experience at a very young age, it just put me on this track of recollection, remembering who I really am as an infinite spiritual being having this human experience, that this wasn't all that there is. This is just a temporary journey of the soul, an experience of the soul. But this life was a spiritual assignment. This life was a school for the soul. I was here, sent from the spirit realm, my ultimate home, to be here, to experience joy, relationships, growth, expansion, love, all of those wonderful things. But it's just an experience. It's not the, finality of my experience, as we are eternal beings and we have infinite journeys, throughout lifetimes in and lifetimes out, both here and on the spirit realm. We just are eternal, which is something for the left brain that's very hard to conceptualize, as the left brain, is structured in, past, present, future, and will not understand anything that doesn't have an ending. And so our souls, know this to be true. So I think really what's important is to remember who we are. And if we're able to do that, we can embrace that part of ourselves. For instance, if you were to go, and I think a lot of people are getting into trouble, not trouble, but they're having difficulties because they're ignoring maybe that part of themselves, or they don't know what that voice is within, or they don't know how to, nurture that voice. And this is who we are at our deepest core. So for instance, you wouldn't ignore eating, which I've had a birthday and unfortunately been doing a little bit about, but hey, we're here to enjoy. That's what Tauruses like to do. But you wouldn't go a couple weeks without eating or drinking, and we need that for our brains and our bodies. And, there's, we need to nurture those parts of ourselves. But I think a lot of people, are deprived in their soul. They're not really tapped into their soul, or they don't know how to listen to it, how to really know how to give it what it needs, or forget that they are, a soul, and just see themselves from the human angle, with all this construct of their own egos and all these things that, are all things that we temporarily experience, but aren't the full totality of who we are. So once you recognize that you have this soul, it's kind of like with great power comes a great sense of responsibility. And this, inner part of us is our biggest superpower, that I'll expand upon, within future videos. But, just to cap off this video, remembering who you are as a spiritual being is the greatest gift of freedom. And sometimes we have to lose ourselves to find ourselves. And that's a vulnerability. And a lot of people would rather hold on to what they know versus expand and explore the unknown. But here, listening today, you're challenging that box. You're expanding, that box, and it's continuously growing. And that will allow you to have a greater expression of who you are. So some tips and some tools, to really embrace your inner self is to practice, self-loving exercises. I call it, in a way, radical acceptance, and that's, a therapeutic process, which will get into the mental health component that I have and throughout my own experience. But I think in a way it's learning how to unconditionally love ourselves. And so, I practice a technique called emotional freedom technique, or EFT, which really has to do with our bodies, acupressure and meridian points, and just kind of tapping all those points and allowing the stagnant energy to flow. But it comes with an NLP component, which is, for those familiar with hypnosis, it's called Neuro-Linguistic, language program. And so NLP technique really allows us to kind of change our perceptions of who we are and change what we focus on. So instead of when a bad thing comes in, we say, oh my God, I'm a bad person, my life has no forward progress from this thing, this is it, this is a finality. Or if that person yells at us, we'll feel very down, we'll feel rejected. And I think what's important is to separate the things that we experience versus the love inside of ourselves, and to have radical acceptance, which means that we may not like what happens to us, but we are able to accept and love ourselves beyond those moments. So, when something difficult happens to me, like, let's say, I had a difficult client session or just a rough day, I will just kind of say, despite so-and-so, and I will tap my forehead or my body, I still accept and embrace myself. I still accept and love myself. And that is the embodiment of God, isn't it? It's unconditional love, for not necessarily loving for what we do, but loving for who we are. And what kind of creator would tarnish his creations? What kind of parent would do that to a child? That's a part of unconditional love. It doesn't mean that we don't mess up and make mistakes. It means that we have lifetimes to learn from those mistakes. And part of the greatest lesson is to learn, yes, but also to learn how to accept, the mistakes that we do and the imperfections and the things that we may struggle to love about ourselves. And that's real true love, is unconditional. So if anything else, just remember to practice unconditional love in those difficult situations, in those moments when you're feeling kind of bogged down. Then you'll see your energy just kind of rise, and you'll let out that exhale, and you'll inhale in spirit. In your exhale, you experience yourself at a newer, higher plane, a new, awareness in those moments. So we'll have the ability to increase our trajectory, increase our vibrations, through love, through the power of accepting ourselves, and through joy. So remember, we are infinite spiritual being having these human experiences, here to really remember who we are and to really overcome a lot of the, myths within our culture and myths within our own development, that are incongruent with that part of ourselves. And to be vulnerable enough to challenge maybe some things that don't make sense, or some things that are no longer serving our greatest and highest good. So for now, it's been incredible to be here with you today, and thank you for joining me. I hope some of this helps. You remember who you are, and I know my NDE was the greatest gift, and remembering who I was, and I just want to give back to all of you that we don't have to die to remember ourselves. We don't have to die to live, that we can live while we live. We don't need an NDE or a crossing over experience when we leave this world to live in infinite consciousness and infinite awareness, to live in true with who we are, that we could practice that each and every day of our lives. And that's a beautiful thing to do, and to continuously, each and every day, constantly get better, constantly increase the way that we're seeing the world, and always evolving, ourselves and our perceptional viewpoints. So thank you for tuning in. If this was a video that brought you joy, that brought you inspiration, that gave you some practical insight that you could apply in your everyday life, please feel free to share your thoughts, comments, or you could even share the post to a friend who may need it, as insight and wisdom is the oxygen of our times. And that's what this channel is all about. So stay tuned for future videos from the ground up, from the mind, body, spirit, all those angles. We're going to hit on all of them, and stay tuned for some future videos. If you like this video, please please make sure to subscribe so that you'll be continuously aware of other videos to come and some great, events and projects that we have going on. And please make sure to like, comment, share this video. And we love having you back on the channel, and stay tuned for next time. Thank you. Signing out. Have a wonderful day, and may spirit be with you. Peace.